we can. I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. And why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Great gosh, you're right. Yes, we can. I know we can.
Thank you for joining. My guest today is a super lawyer. He graduated from the University of Notre Dame, cum laude. He graduated from Georgetown University Law Center, cum laude. He is a former federal prosecutor who clerked for 2 federal judges and handled high-profile cases. He recently secured a landmark $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion preliminary injunction in a case he filed faulting the city and county of Los Angeles for their handling of the homelessness crises and demanding government action to end homelessness in Los Angeles. In 2018, he won a $3.7 million verdict in a whistleblower case filed against a Los Angeles area school district that fired its CFO and CEO after they raised concerns about bribery and corruption. He was named Attorney of the Year by the California Lawyer magazine in 2012. He is a super lawyer, as I stated earlier. He is Matthew Umhofer. He is a named partner and owner of Spertus, Landis, and Umhofer. He is a great man, and he's also president of the Dwight Opperman Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. As I indicated earlier, my special guest today is Attorney Matthew Umhofer. Attorney, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Pastor Manning. It's great to be here.
Thank you. I've told my people about you already, our audience, but for the sake of those who don't know you, tell me who you are.
I am a lawyer, a father, a servant, and my hope is, a force for a little bit of good in the world. That's the best I can do right now.
Fabulous, fabulous. Tell me about this major, unheard of, first of its kind lawsuit that you or your firm, my dear friend, one of your attorneys, Elizabeth Mitchell, filed on behalf of the homeless. Tell me, unpack that for me. How did that come about?
It was a remarkable series of events that led to this lawsuit and to what we now have in place, which is settlements with the city and the county to require the city and the county to do far more than they've done to house, shelter, provide services to the homeless. It begins really 20 years ago. Liz Mitchell and I worked together. I was a federal prosecutor at the time. She was an extern in the office. Okay. I was a mentor to her for the last 15, 20 years or so. But, she far outstripped me very quickly. She was with the city attorney's office. And we kept in touch all the way through. All of her work at the city city attorney's office, doing criminal prosecutions, right. Doing work on behalf of the police. But when she was thinking about leaving the city attorney's office, we had a good discussion, and I just said, I want to do great things with you, so come join us. Mm-hmm. She did, and within just a period of months, people were reaching out to her. She had a great reputation leaving that office, and there was a coalition of people from business owners to property owners to service providers to people who were unsheltered mm-hmm. and homeless, and they were reaching out as a group trying to figure out a way to involve the judicial system in the homelessness crisis, because the executive branch, as Liz puts it, the executive and legislative branches had both failed our city, they'd failed our county, and we wanted to figure out, and they wanted to figure out, is there any path forward? Okay. And the answer they were getting from lawyer after lawyer was no, there's no path forward. But Liz and I sat down and decided we were going to find a way to say yes to this. Yes, we can, as you'd like to say.
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
No.
Okay. And so you all made the decision, because I've heard that a lot of law firms wanted nothing to do with this, could not see a way, and you were the firm that said, as you just said, yes, we can. So what happened after you met with this group? What is it, the LA Alliance? Tell me about that.
they were just kind of a group of like-minded folks who care about the issue, who care about people who are suffering on the streets, and could see that what the city and the county were doing was just obviously failing. Okay. And so, our job at that moment is to figure out, is there a way forward? And lawyers love to be able to say, oh, this was done this way in another case. Right. We are famous for just copying what everyone else is, what somebody else has done. Right. But and that makes sense because we are precedential people. We are people who are bound by precedent, follow precedent, and want. But one of the things to know about the law is that some of the very best things that happen in the law happen because people push precedent, happen because people take what is precedent and make it more and better. And so our job here, because there's nobody else who'd ever done this, unprecedented as you put it, literally, we had to figure out what's the path here forward in light of precedent, and what are the kinds of claims we can bring that would get the city and the county's attention. There's that line from The Wire. I believe it's Omar says, if you're going to shoot the king, you best not miss. Right. We knew if we're taking a shot at the city and the county, we had to make it a good shot. We couldn't just throw a bunch of stuff in there and hope that they came to the table. So we had to put together a powerful document, a complaint that was going to get the attention of the city and the county and also of the judiciary. And that's what we set about doing. We spent months doing it. Liz and I tag teaming the issues until we had together a set of claims that we thought could survive scrutiny in court and get the city and the county thinking about a different path.
Okay. And tell me about the judge overseeing all of this, Judge David Carter. I happen to be very impressed with the man. What do you think about him?
Well, anybody who's interested, they should just, Google homeless Carter, Los Angeles. Okay. You're going to find an article in the LA Times in the middle of COVID. A 74-year-old former Marine was walking the streets of Skid Row. And I know you do that every day, and I admire you deeply for it, but there's not a lot of federal judges who do that.
No, absolutely not.
And so when we got this case in front of Judge Carter, and that was an intentional act on our part because he had done such remarkable things in Orange County on the issue of homelessness, we thought he would be the best positioned, and it would make sense for a case like this to be in front of a judge like him. And he immediately called for a hearing attended by every city official you can imagine. Mayor Eric Garcetti, chair of the Board of Supervisors at the time, several different city officials in the middle of COVID gathering. And to try to get the city and the county thinking boldly and differently on this. And
I was told when you all met that day, nobody knew whether to shake hands, bump elbows, or what, because COVID
was going on. That's right. Are we wearing masks? Are we not? It's so early in the pandemic, we don't know what we're doing. And hearing after hearing, during the pandemic, we are learning together how to be together and to litigate together. And, I'm thinking about, the fact that there's, even in the context of the Bible, there is such a thing as a good fight. And this was a good fight to have. The city and the county were loath to make big changes and fought us a fair amount of the way, even with all the energy and the focus that Judge Carter was bringing to this walk in Skid Row, meeting with every city council member and every member of the Board of Supervisors to try to get to them to the table. It took more than 2 years to get the city to the table, and then another six months or so to get the county to the table. But by virtue of the pressure that we continued to put on the city and the county, and the pressure that the judiciary brought to bear in the form of Judge Carter, we finally got them to a point where they were willing to say, all right, we are going to submit to judicial enforcement. We are going to finally agree to accountability on an issue that unfortunately breaks my heart, but the voters were not holding our leaders accountable on this issue.
True.
And people who were failing on this issue were still keeping their jobs, and that was unacceptable. And now we have a federal judge who's going to say, look, if city and county, you don't do what you promised to do, you're going to pay dearly for it. And that is a huge difference on this issue.
Out of curiosity, what do you think made the city and the county fight so hard? I mean, why didn't they want to come to the table? I mean, all of us claim that we want to clean up homelessness, and we feel so bad for people, our fellow man, sleeping on the streets on the wealthiest nation on planet Earth. Why do you think it was so difficult to get them to come to the table?
That's a good question. I think hubris has a huge role to play in that. You have city and county officials who believe that they have been elected and this is their job and they're doing everything they can, despite the evidence, and because to say otherwise would be to admit that they are failing, and they have a very hard time doing that in specifics. They can say, oh, we're failing in the abstract, but when it comes to specifics, city and county, especially elected officials, have a very hard time admitting, you know what, we are failing you, the people of Los Angeles. That was part of it. I think there's also the problem with government is there's always an initiative and there's always a fact sheet of talking points and there's always a budget that you can point to. So initiatives, fact sheets, budgets, there's all this self-justifying stuff that comes with politics and policy where you can say, yes, we're failing, but we're doing all these things, so we must not be failing.
Right.
And that is effort without accountability is useless, especially on an issue where our precious brothers and sisters are suffering on the streets.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're joining me with attorney Matthew Umhofer. We'll be right back after this. We'll get right back to this fascinating interview with one of the lead attorneys in this country who has just secured a $1 billion settlement in the homelessness lawsuit, attorney Matthew Umhofer. I want to thank the Dwight Opperman Foundation again. I want to thank my dear friend, attorney Frank Gooch. I'd like to thank attorney Matthew Close and each of you who is watching today who sits down and decides that you're going to become a part of this spectacular podcast and help us keep these podcasts going around the world. Apple Music, iHeart, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, we're there. And the only way we're going to keep going there is if you join our donors and sponsors and help us with this podcast. Sit down today. Go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Click donate now. Send your $5 contribution, $500, $5,000, whatever it is. No donation is too large or small. We house the homeless. We feed the hungry. We make a difference in this country. And you can help us right now. yeswecanworshipcenter.org. Now, let's get back to attorney Matthew Umhofer. Take a look at this. Yes, I'm back with attorney Matthew Umhofer. Let me ask you this, and we'll get back to the lawsuit in a moment. I'm very excited about the lawsuit. Quite frankly, as you know, Skid Row is like home away from home to me. I've walked those streets during the daytime, during the nighttime, doing everything and anything that I can through Yes We Can Worship Center to house the homeless and feed the hungry. But take me back a moment and tell me, what made you want to become an attorney?
It's a very good question. I grew up in a family. I grew up raised by a judge, actually. Okay. So I learned to say Your Honor and occasionally objection, and to get overruled on a regular basis. Okay. So my dad was a judge for many years. He was a lawyer before that, but God love him. He used to tell me, "You don't want to be a lawyer. Lawyers are jerks." Okay. And so but
what kind of lawyer was he?
He did civil, a mix criminal? of criminal, mostly criminal. He was a prosecutor and a public defender. He saw both sides of the issue. Okay. He did a little bit of civil work, didn't like that so much, but he was very good at what he did, tried death penalty cases, tried, on the defense side, tried a little bit of everything, and found himself very at home in a courtroom, but also very at home being able to tell people what to do as a judge. And so I developed a real appreciation for the law through him. He was always happy about the work that he did. I never saw a day where my dad came home and complained about his work. And that, I think, stuck with me more than whatever he said about lawyers, that my dad found satisfaction in the law and purpose in the law. And when I went to, I grew up in San Luis Obispo, small town. My mom's a college professor. My dad's a prosecutor and then a judge.
Is that area code 805?
It's in the 805. That's
okay,
right.
All right.
That's right.
Okay. And your mom did what again?
My mom was a college professor. She taught speech and communications on the college level, but one of the things she also did, she's very active in the community. We had a power plant there, a nuclear power plant called Diablo Canyon. It was built on top of an earthquake fault, and my mom was very involved in the opposition because she cared about our futures and she cared about the futures of the people in the community. At risk, constantly at risk, in light of having a nuclear power plant that was always capable of melting down in ways that could have been worse than 3 Mile Island. So I grew up protesting. I grew up involved in my community through especially the activism of my mother on that issue. I went to Notre Dame as an undergrad. I almost became a priest, actually. So I took a lot of classes in government, took a lot of classes in theology. And when I came to my senior year, it was the seminary or law school. And it's interesting to think that I was called away from the seminary, that, in some ways one might think you're being called away from God, but in so many ways, especially through this lawsuit, I've come to realize that we're called to the places where our gifts are. And my gifts my gifts are in the law, and I was surrounded by people at Notre Dame. It's a wonderful university, and I went to Georgetown for law school, so I've been Catholic. I went to Catholic school before that. I've been Catholic all the way through. But in that context, you're constantly surrounded by people who are doing good works, who are serving the Lord and building the kingdom in a lot of different ways, whether it's soup kitchens or tutoring or there's so many different, and I always felt that I hadn't quite found my way to serve, all the way through high school, even and college, and even in law school. And so to find this opportunity and to have it brought to me through a friend as wonderful as my partner, Liz Mitchell, and to be able to build the kingdom in this way, using my gifts and my strengths and all of the 20-odd years of legal work that I had done working for judges and working as a prosecutor, it really builds to this. I don't know that in my life I will do anything better than what we have done in this lawsuit. And the fact that I had to wait 50 years to find a place to put my gifts at the service of others in a really effective way, that's okay by me. And if I don't do anything else that's good, this is okay, because we are bringing housing and shelter and services to tens of thousands of people who really need it here in Los Angeles, and I'm deeply grateful for that.
On that note, we'll be right back after this. I hope you're enjoying this interview with this very successful super lawyer, attorney Matthew Umhofer. He's a lead attorney in his firm, named partner. He's also the president of the Dwight Opperman Foundation. And let me take this opportunity to thank the Dwight Opperman Foundation, my dear friend, attorney Frank Gooch, attorney Matthew Close. And those of you who are watching, if you would like to join them in becoming donors for this organization to help this podcast keep going, to help us house the homeless and feed the hungry, you can go to yeswecanworshipcenter.org right now and send your donation. Listen, don't just watch the show and tell me how great it is. Please be a part of it. Your donation, $5, $50, $50,000. No donation is too large or small. We need your help today. We house the homeless. We feed the hungry. We try to make a difference in this city and in this world. And you can be a part of doing that with your donation right now. Now, back to this. Joining me with attorney Matthew Umhofer. I like what you were saying about finding your gifts and your callings, and it doesn't have to be preaching. But what I like about the lawsuit and what I like about what your law firm is doing is, in my opinion, you are the epitome of what Christ talked about in St. Matthew chapter 25 when he said, I was hungry and you fed me not. Inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, our brothers, you've done it also unto me. And what I try to preach everywhere I go is that we all have a calling, we all have a purpose. There's something that God has called us to do, and you don't have to preach through a church. You can preach through a law firm. You can preach through your life. My dad always said, I'd rather see a sermon any day than to hear one. I see so much you do, I hear nothing you say. So I believe that your history gets you ready for your destiny. And so I don't think you really waited, Matthew, 50 years to find your calling. I think everything that you did prior to now was getting you ready for what you're doing right now. And I commend you for the lawsuit. I commend you for what you're doing. Tell me a little bit more about Attorney Elizabeth Mitchell, who is just one of my favorite persons on the planet. Tell me more about her and her drive and her passion.
She's just a remarkable human being. You know, I met her. She was at Pepperdine Law School. She went to UC Riverside undergrad, was at Pepperdine Law School. She came into my office when I was a young prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she brought to the table so much enthusiasm mixed with humility. You know, there's tons of people who come into your office and think they're a big deal. They went to Harvard, they went to Yale, and things like that.
Arrogant.
But I was always drawn to the underdogs, and Liz Mitchell was that kind of a person who was bringing so much energy and enthusiasm. And so whether I'd rather have 10 Liz Mitchells than have one Liz Mitchell than 10 Yale or Harvard or Stanford graduates. Right. She is scrappy. She's extremely intelligent, wonderful mother, and an amazing lawyer. And when we were sitting down to try to figure this lawsuit out, and she was bringing a lot of wonderful ideas to the table. But one of the challenges as a lawyer is you are always trying to find where are you on solid ground and where are you on shaky ground. Right. And she was so good at kind of saying, look, there's some stuff out here that's shaky, and identifying for me and for us the places where it was going to be harder for us to get to where we needed to go. But one of the things that I turned to her and I just said, look, we're not bringing this lawsuit to win small. We're bringing this lawsuit to win big. Right. And so what I need you to do is be bold and be great. And she responded so well to that, better than any lawyer I've ever encountered, really. And what the result of that, which is 20,000, city and county commitments to services and shelter and housing for 20,000 souls, $3 billion in spending, supervised or overseen by a federal judge. That's the results, and Liz Mitchell, more than anybody else, is responsible for that, and I'm so proud of her and so proud to be her partner.
Both of us are proud of her. What's going to happen November, 15th, in the courtroom?
So we've got the next hearing we have a couple of ancillary hearings here and there, but the city and the county have reached their own agreement. We are in the process of finalizing our agreement with the county to resolve the lawsuit. And we go into the judge and we present this resolution, this settlement to the judge. We will then be we'll see what the judge does. Judge Carter is as independent as a federal judge can be, and you always want that. You want we have an independent judiciary for a reason. And so there's no way I'm counting any chickens before they're hatched here. Right. That said, we're bringing to the table a real resolution that will involve shelter and housing, and most importantly, what the county brings is services. So when you think about cities are responsible for the beds, the counties are responsible for making sure that people get the services that they need. And and when we talk about services, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about substance use disorder. These are things that a lot of people are hesitant to talk about, but you and I both know they're massive issues in the homelessness population. We mean no disrespect to anybody who's suffering from those things. We mean to bring them help, and this county is the one that has the resources to help and provide the services to those people. So we're bringing that all to Judge Carter, and he'll have an opportunity to take a look and see if it's something he's willing to accept jurisdiction over for the next 5 years to enforce the agreement to hold the city and the county's feet to the fire on the commitments that they're making.
Precisely. I've got less than 3 minutes. I'm going to bring you back after the court appearance in November. But before we go, I can't let you go without you telling me something about the Dwight Opperman Foundation. Tell me what that's about.
Thank you very much for asking. It's a wonderful organization. I'm the president of this foundation. It was founded by a man who was really quite a visionary. One could compare him to Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, but in the law. He ran for 30 years the West Publishing Company. West Publishing, whenever you see a lawyer TV ad and there's a bunch of books behind you, Dwight Opperman's company, West Publishing, printed those books.
Wow.
Over time, the need moved from we want things in books to we want things on computers. And so even in the 80s and 90s, I'm hanging out in my dad's judicial chambers, and he's pulling up CD-ROMs of Westlaw, finding cases, searching cases. It used to be you had to pour through the books to find them.
Right.
Dwight Opperman brought West Publishing into the 21st century through online research services that we all enjoy today. He created a foundation that really exists to affirm the rule of law. We provide, and so as part of that foundation, we give an award every year to a federal judge of distinction, and that's going to happen actually in a few weeks at the Supreme Court. All the Supreme Court justices attend, and a particular judge is celebrated for the work that they've done in the judiciary. We also have the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Award for Women in Leadership, which is provided to women, which is awarded once a year to women of great distinction in their fields who've demonstrated great leadership. And one of the most recent recipients of that award was, in fact, the Queen of England. She accepted the award a couple of years ago before her passing. So it's a wonderful organization. We have, as the president of the foundation, I arranged for a donation to be made to the Yes We Can Worship Center in recognition of the wonderful work you do, and we're so pleased to support you.
And we're so glad, and we appreciate you very, very much. I thank you for all that you're doing for my brothers and sisters, the homeless who are sleeping on the streets. And I know that together we're going to get this thing solved, and there's going to be a way made out of no way. I had you and Elizabeth at my church, I think about a year or so ago when I gave her an award. Right. I'm going to have you all back again. We've actually moved into a sanctuary now, but we still have that Friday night service, and I'm going to get both of you back. I want to thank you for coming on. Matt, with 90 seconds, anything last words you'd like to say?
I think one of the things about this lawsuit that really drives home a very important truth for me is that you actually never know how powerful you are or you can be.
Wow.
I had no idea that I could make a difference this great just by practicing law and trying to be a good lawyer and taking some risks. Right. And so it's a message there for everybody, people of faith, people who are struggling with their faith. Right. You have no idea how powerful you are and what a difference you can make. And I just want to encourage people to think on that and pray on that, and don't be impatient, but just be firm in the conviction that there is a place for you in the world and there is an opportunity for you to be powerful. That I think is what I've learned from this.
And I like that. Elizabeth told me that you like to say, be great. And I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for the donation. We always need the help, and it will go a long way into sending the podcast around the world, feeding the hungry and housing the homeless. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching a super lawyer, attorney Matt Umhofer. And remember that together we can make a difference. And Matt said it best. You have no idea how powerful you are, how powerful your voice can be, how powerful your life can be, how powerful your dream can be. We can make a difference in this world. We can do it together. Yes, we can.
Amen.
Gosh, your body. We can make it, y'all.